Welcome in to another Best Bets episode. Conference tournaments underway. Um, we had Missouri Valley start today, which is probably one of the most notable for this week anyway, that and West Coast Conference, even though West Coast Conference, the way they structure it, you get kind of bum games the first few days anyway. But conference tournaments are here nonetheless. Kind of a weird time where you're looking at the college basketball slate and you're figuring out which games are conference tournament games and which ones are just regular season games. So a bit of a strange week.
For sure. But it's definitely exciting. I mean, getting this last regular season week out of the way is something that like a lot of people are ready for and kind of just ready for the tournament setting across the board. And it's going to be a wild last month of the season for sure.
Yeah. No, it should be awesome. So we have a few bets to throw at you for this weekend. A lot of the lines aren't official yet, so we don't exactly have that many official plays for you. We have more leans to talk through, but as we've always said, join in on the Discord, follow the action account, so that you can see what our plays actually end up being. We just want to get this out to you as soon as possible, but obviously where lines aren't official yet, we're not entirely sure for the weekend exactly what we're going to have. So make sure you're following along with that stuff if you want the official plays.
Yeah, running pretty well right now as well. We just cashed a few futures from earlier in the year that we had from, it was like our third episode. We had like St. Mary's plus 800, I believe, to win the league before league play started. St. John's to win the league as well. So pretty good reads there. Hopefully some people were hopped on board for those. But yeah, we're running pretty well. And obviously it's going to get a little bit crazy here. And it's going to be hard to hop on the podcast and talk about some of these games because they just come one after another. So it's going to be more just like releasing plays like on the Discord. So make sure to get in there and see what we have rolling.
Yeah, for sure. So going to jump right in. First play we're going to give out tomorrow, Winthrop minus 2.5 against Longwood.
Yeah, I mean, probably my only Big South play of the entire year. I mean, definitely the first one I've made. Obviously, High Point is the favorite to win this league, but honestly, I wouldn't even mind sprinkling a little bit on Winthrop to win the league at plus 800. They're sitting at the 3 seed right now, I believe, and it's a really good matchup for them. So I think there is definitely a path for them to at least get to the final, and then there's some cash out options in that area against either High Point, or if High Point ends up getting upset, I think you have a pretty good ticket in your hand at plus 800. But Winthrop, they dominated both of the regular season matchups here. They beat Longwood 95-76 and 85-59 recently, a couple weeks ago, and there's this narrative out there. Obviously, a lot of people talk about it's hard to beat a team 3 times, and I don't really buy into that narrative at all, especially when the matchup is extremely favorable. And I mean, you could consider Winthrop the better team overall, as they're laying 2.5 here, and they've been pretty much the better team throughout the entire season and throughout league play. But the real matchup angle is Winthrop should just dominate the rim on the offensive end. They're in the 100th percentile in rim attempt rate per synergy, and they're number 1 nationally in foul rate drawn. And Longwood is extremely vulnerable in this area. They try to prevent rim attempts, but they're the worst 2-point defense in the entire country on a percentage basis. They allow 59.3% of field goal attempts to go inside the arc, which is a crazy number. And they foul a ton as well. I believe they're close to 300th ranked in foul rate on the defensive end. So that's a major advantage for Winthrop, and definitely an angle I'd like to take, because I mean, there's less variance involved, obviously, with a team that can score at the rim consistently. It's not a team that's going to bomb away from 3 and create more variance. So I feel pretty good about this angle. And even if Longwood tries to prevent rim attempts or completely pack it in, which I don't really see happening, I mean, Winthrop they're capable of making catch and shoot threes. I mean, it's a heavy rim and 3 defense. They're obviously trying to create those kick out threes if they can't get to the rim. So they're 67th percentile in catch and shoot points per possession in the country. So yeah, and there's a lot of similarities between these teams outside of this, but this angle is pretty significant. So yeah, I'll lay the 2.5 here with Winthrop.
Yeah. So that's our only like official play as of now. Just going to talk through a bunch of leans now, probably a bit more rapid fire. But the first one, my Dayton Flyers, unfortunately, I don't know if I really want to claim them anymore. It's been a bit of a rocky season, but after the start they had, I was all in. But anyway, plus 9.5 tomorrow at VCU. Seems like a bit of a big number.
Yeah, it definitely is. And it's kind of a fade of VCU. They just won the A10 regular season championship. So I wouldn't say there's not a ton to play for because they're still playing for an at-large berth and they're on the right side of the bubble right now on most projections. So I just like this Dayton team in a revenge angle, and I like how they can handle the pressure of VCU. Although they didn't handle it particularly well in the first matchup, I do think they have enough ball handlers on the floor. They can pretty much handle it 1 through 5 and handle the heavy pressure defense of VCU. They like to press at an extremely high rate, and I think they can handle that. And they'll be able to create enough offensive value in this game to hang around. And they have an at-large case of their own somehow. It really doesn't seem like they have much of a chance of getting an at-large, but I've seen them next 4 out, maybe a little bit outside of that. They win this game, like they get themselves into the conversation. But in like a recent like rivalry game, I do like grabbing the points in this situation with VCU, who could potentially have their foot off the gas a little bit, or having already clinched the A10 regular season.
Yeah, and Dayton also played a fantastic second half the other night against St. Louis. So who knows? Maybe they ride high on that. What'd you say? They made like 10 shots in a row at one point.
Yeah, it was 10 in a row. It was pretty ridiculous to watch. I don't know if it was partly the St. Louis defense kind of falling apart, but I mean, Dayton has all the upside in the world, especially on the offensive end. It's just defensively they're pretty limited, and that's definitely a concern in this game. Like VCU gets all over the offensive glass. They rebound at all 5 positions with their length and athleticism, and Philip Russell might be out for this game for VCU. He's a big time shot maker for them, so that would just be another feather in Dayton's cap, in my opinion.
Yeah. So that's it for Friday. Going to move on to Saturday now. Going to talk Duke UNC first. That's one of the 2 games of the day. If that's what you want to consider it, just because it is Duke UNC, it does get that hype. But at least my perspective, I don't really see this game being all that close again, just like it was in the first matchup.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it the first time around. I think it's a pretty bad matchup for UNC. Although they've been shooting the ball a lot better, I just don't know how much I buy into this team being like an elite perimeter shot making team. Like Drake Powell and Jalen Withers are making a ton of shots. Like Withers is shooting like 46% this year, and Powell's worked his way up to, I believe, 39%. And I just never really saw the shooting upside. I haven't watched a ton of them lately, just for what it's worth, just because the recent schedule they played and just hasn't been all that strong. So I haven't really been locked into watching them necessarily. But this is a team that they live in transition and they live getting to the rim. And you can't do that against Duke. Duke's in like the 2nd percentile in transition opportunities allowed, and they completely deny the rim as well. I believe they're bottom 5% in rim attempts allowed. And when you get there, they're elite. They have Maliwatch sitting there. They don't have Malik Brown right now, but they still have plenty of depth. And Cooper Flagg's obviously an elite rim protector at the 4 position, and they just have an edge athleticism wise and physicality wise at all 5 positions. And I think that plays up in the spot, and it is going to be tough to win by 12 points at the Dean Dome. They're laying 11.5 on the road, which was a shock to me. I thought it was going to be, I texted you a couple days ago. I was like, I think the spot tax here is going to make this 7.5 or 8. It's not even close to that. Maybe it gets bet down to 8.5, right. And I would consider firing away on Duke, but for now I'm going to sit it out and probably lean Duke. I think the number's a bit crazy with UNC in like a this is an all-time desperation spot. But then again, it is Duke UNC, and both teams are going to be just as high up for this game.
Yeah. Getting Proctor back the other night, I think was big too. He'd missed a couple games, and
Yeah, he was dealing with a knee injury.
Came back against Wake in that slaughter. Wake's a whole different story. They don't even deserve any screen time, but I think that's going to be a huge help for this game. Not that they necessarily needed him, but I think he just elevates them with the way he's played this year. A little bit more off the ball, and his shooting has been elite. So, yeah, I definitely like Duke here to win, probably to cover the number as well.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, maybe it's something I throw in like a two-way money line parlay, but I mean they're like minus 500 right now, so it's just not really worth it. It's probably just something I sit out. Just not really intrigued at all. Betting UNC here at home, just the matchup is way too significantly in Duke's favor.
Yeah. Now we have two teams coming off a loss in Auburn, Alabama. This line I think projects at 9.5 for Auburn. Alabama, lost at home to Florida yesterday. Auburn lost at Texas A&M. We talked about earlier in the week, Texas A&M, Auburn was an interesting game because Auburn had already clinched the top seed in the SEC. Denver Jones didn't play in that game. I don't know what his deal was. Was he just injured?
He was supposed to play. He was game time decision. He warmed up and then he sat on the bench the entire game. He was dealing with a knee injury, but I think it's more precautionary.
Yeah. So I think we may see a little bit more of that here, but I also think there's a chance that, Auburn, they're at home. I assume this is their senior day.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I would assume they're going to probably play this as close to like an SEC tournament tune-up as possible. And they're not. It's a rivalry game. They're not trying to lose to Alabama at home. So I don't really know how I feel about the number here. It feels like a big number. Alabama is going to be playing probably a little bit more desperate because they're probably seeking that 1 seed still. Although I think they're probably now kind of a long shot unless they go on a big run in the SEC tournament. But this is a game they definitely want to get, rivalry game. But I think Auburn plays this game, like I said, pretty close to how they normally would play any other game, and take care of business.
Yeah, I think I'd say the motivation is going to be pretty equal here, despite Alabama being extremely desperate. Like Auburn, Alabama is one of the best rivalry games in the sport at the moment, or recently, especially on the basketball side. I just think the matchup is very favorable for Auburn, but definitely not going to lay the big number here in a rivalry game. It's tough to lay these big numbers, but I do think Auburn has advantages on both sides of the ball. We talked about it in the first matchup where I did lean Auburn, didn't end up having any money down on it, but I think Johni Broome is kind of going to make the difference in this game. I think his post-up offense is going to be able to create.
If he can make a free throw, maybe he'll cover a points prop.
Yeah. I mean, I will be on that again for full disclosure. I will be betting that again. I mean, he missed 6 free throws. What was it? 6 free throws in the last minute or 4 in a row, or something like that. He went 3 for 9 in the game from the line, but missed 4 in the last minute. Pretty crazy. In the double bonus, missed all 4. It was,
and all he needed to do was make one. He needed one.
Yeah. It was pretty impressive, but he does make all the difference in the world in this matchup because Alabama will never double the post unless Johni Broome starts going nuclear, and then they're going to have to switch something up at some point, and that's just going to leave all of these shooters open. And like Chad Baker-Mazara, Denver Jones, I'm assuming he's going to play in this game he warmed up in the last game. I would assume he's ready to go. Then Miles Kelly and Tahad Pettiford, like they just have shooters all over the floor. But Auburn on the defensive end, I think they can limit Alabama's kick out 3 opportunities, that's all Alabama looks for. Like they're trying to attack the rim relentlessly, force help, and kick out the shooters like Youngblood and Holloway. And Auburn was able to limit that last time. I believe Alabama shot 5 for 26 from 3, and most of the threes that they took were all guarded, and Auburn is elite at defending catch and shoot. So I think they're going to be able to do that again at home. And like I wouldn't be surprised if Auburn was able to run away with this game early, but it's not really worth putting my money on something that's -9, 9.5 against an Alabama team that's probably still considered a top 6 or 7 team in the country.
Yeah. I think this could end up being another one of those SEC games that goes 3 hours, I think.
Yeah, that's all at this point.
Like that, the last one between these two teams, it was like it never ended. Both teams, I think, were in the bonus the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it's that, and any Texas A&M game is going to last 3 hours because they hack, and they've always played.
And honestly, kind of Missouri too. Missouri games take forever.
Yeah. They get fouled. I think they're number 1 in free throw rate in the country. Actually, no, it's Winthrop. But we were just talking about that. But I think they're like number 2 or number 3, like in foul rate. It's just everyone in this league, they foul a bunch and they get fouled. It's a bunch of athletes just flying through the air and just hacking each other. It's fun to watch, but it takes a while.
Yeah. We have a few other leans for Saturday. First one, Mississippi State +2 against Arkansas. On the road here, coming off a home loss against a pretty desperate Texas team in overtime. Arkansas is playing some pretty solid basketball despite their last Saturday debacle at South Carolina.
Yeah, I doubt we get 2 here because, I mean, Torvik projection is 2, but Adou Thiaro's probably going to be out again. I'm hearing whispers that he's going to be out for the season, and I think he has a torn meniscus. I don't know how true that is. I haven't seen like an official report, but I've seen it in a lot of different spots, and he means a lot to this team on both ends of the floor. Just the replacement value for him is just, it's not really there. Like they're going to play more. They play more Billy Richmond minutes and more Carter Knox minutes, and they just don't bring the same impact on both sides of the ball that Thiero brings. And I think Mississippi State's defense matches up pretty well with Arkansas's offense, especially without Thiero. Mississippi State, they deny transition. They're only 25th percentile in transition opportunities allowed. Arkansas basically needs to live in transition to be able to keep up on the offensive end. Their offense looks pretty horrendous in the half court at times. We saw that against South Carolina. It was just absolutely terrible. They had one of the worst offensive performances of the entire season, at least in the SEC. And if you're going to force Arkansas to beat you over the top, I think that's a pretty good proposition. Honestly, like Arkansas doesn't have a ton of shooting, like outside of Davis, who's not really shooting it all that well. Knox is an okay shooter, but Mississippi State tries to deny the rim at all costs and force you to win by shooting threes. So I think it's a pretty good matchup for their defense. And I kind of trust this Mississippi State offense in a bounce back spot to, get on the glass as well. I think that's an area that you can get Arkansas's defense. They're a little bit thin up front. They have a lot of bodies, but they don't have a lot of great defensive rebounders. So I think it's a decent spot for Josh Hubbard to get right after a few rough games for him. But so yeah, I'll take the 2 if I get it, but I'd probably play this at any dog price, possibly play this at a pick.
Yeah. Next one, Liberty -4 at Western Kentucky. Liberty Flames used to be the March Madness Cinderella everyone loved.
Yep. I mean, I'm going to probably love them again if they end up getting back. They're the favorites to win the tournament, and I think this is a pretty good matchup for them, even though they did lose the first match at home. But I do think that that brings them a nice revenge angle here on the road, which I like to play that angle a decent amount, especially when you're going to get a lower point spread. You lose as a significant favorite at home. Now you're going on the road against that team. I think, and I do think this is a good matchup for them. And Western Kentucky loves to play in transition. You don't get transition opportunities against Liberty, who grinds games to a halt. They're 99th percentile in transition points per possession allowed, which is elite. Against Western Kentucky, they're 98th percentile in transition frequency per synergy. So, and their offense gets significantly worse when they have to play in the half court. And so that definitely favors Liberty. I always trust a team that can slow it down. It's way easier to slow a game down than it is to speed up that slower team. And I do like how Liberty can operate in the half court. They're they run some beautiful sets, and when they're not getting turned over, which they don't get turned over extremely often, Western Kentucky can bring some pressure, but they should be able to score not however they want, but I think they can find some efficiency inside the arc here in this game.
Yeah. Next one, we have Texas A&M coming off that win at home against Auburn, going at LSU -4.5 against an LSU team that they look terrible at Kentucky earlier this week. They looked like they should just be kicked out of the SEC tournament the way they looked in that game.
Yeah, I am a little worried about this one just because it's senior night and maybe you get like their best effort of the season against an A&M team coming off a win against the number one team in the country where they easily played their best game of the year. It's just at this time in the season, numbers are pretty efficient. I'm going to play the matchups more often than not. You're not really going to find like a game where, I have a 3-point edge here or 3 points of line value. You're just never going to get that. And this is the time of year where you really need to play matchups. And this is a really good matchup for Texas A&M. They can get all over the glass on the offensive end. LSU is one of the worst defensive rebounding teams in the entire country. A&M, the best offensive rebounding team. And LSU, they kind of create their defensive value by their effective field goal percentage is pretty good on the defensive end. I believe they're top 50. And A&M, they don't make shots and they don't need to make shots to create any offensive value. So in LSU, they're not going to turn you over. That's an area that you can get A&M. They're more conservative, more of a drop coverage defense. And A&M on the defensive end, I think they have some advantages here. They can turn over LSU, who's super suspect with the ball, and they can force them to take a bunch of catch and shoot threes. And LSU is one of the worst shooting teams in this league, one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the entire country. So I do think it's a really good matchup on both sides of the ball. I do worry about A&M late in games taking care of the ball and their free throw shooting outside of Wade Taylor, but I'll probably end up laying this. I do think there's going to be some LSU steam just because of the spot. So hopefully I can get 3.5, but I would lay this to 4.5.
Yeah, as long as Wade Taylor doesn't shoot them out of this, or Zurich Phelps for that matter. Both of them are very capable of doing that, as we've discussed.
Right. Yeah, I just don't really worry about them shooting them out of games, especially in this matchup where like Pharrell Payne and Henry Coleman can just grab every single rebound and put it back in.
But they have the other night 22 offensive rebounds against Auburn.
Yeah, they had a 60% offensive rebound rate, which is like one of the highest rates I've seen all year in any matchup. Yeah. So if you can do it against Auburn, Auburn's susceptible on the glass, but LSU is an even worse rebounding team. They're super thin up front. So I expect them to kind of get whatever they want. And I love how this team profiles on the road. So I'm not super afraid of playing road teams right now.
Yeah. Going to stay in the SEC. The next one, Vanderbilt at Georgia. Vanderbilt's +5.5. Coming off that 13-point loss at home to Arkansas earlier this week. I like the side of Vanderbilt here. Feels like Georgia's probably at the peak of their market. They're playing good. What's that? 3 in a row now for them. And I know Blue Cane, Silas, Demery, however the heck you say it. They've been unbelievable lately. Shooting the ball, they've been just very efficient. That whole offense has been pretty efficient as of late. But this Vanderbilt team, I think, they've shown they're very capable of going on the road and winning in tough environments. I wouldn't necessarily call like going to play at Georgia one of the tougher environments in college basketball, or in the SEC for that matter. So, they won at Texas A&M recently. They've done all right on the road. I think this Georgia team is at the peak of their market. I think Vanderbilt might just win this game outright, but I'll take the points. I trust this Vanderbilt team as I've been on them all year. I trust them way more. I think they have the guards in Hogard and Jason Edwards they should be able to outplay Blue Cane and Demery, in my opinion. But I don't know if those guys continue to run hot. You never you never know what could happen. But I like Vanderbilt here getting 5.5.
Yeah, that's definitely the way I leaned in this game. I just worried about the offensive glass a little bit for Georgia and just the interior defense in general for Vanderbilt. But Vanderbilt should be able to turn over Georgia, not as much as they want, but they should be able to turn them over a bunch. Like Georgia's a suspect backcourt when it comes to taking care of the ball. And I don't trust Georgia laying any points at all, especially late in games with the turnover issues, and they don't really make free throws at that high of a clip. So, yeah, this is definitely the side I would be on.
This is probably their biggest number they've laid in conference, if I had to guess.
Yeah, unless they played South Carolina at home, maybe
Yeah.
a couple other ones. I mean, just like last Saturday they were getting 5.5 against Texas,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
now they're going to lay 5.5 against a better team. Like Vanderbilt,
Yeah.
projections, like they're considered the better team over
Right.
Texas, and this line, yeah, it's completely flipping. Like that's an 11-point swing. But yeah, definitely, this is most likely the peak of the market on Georgia. It's probably the smarter play to grab this number. Just a few matchup concerns that I had with Vandy, but I definitely like it.
Yeah. Then my other one, Marquette at home, -1.5 against St. John's. Last time these two teams played, went down to the wire. Marquette had the lead late, under 4 minutes left. Ended up just kind of being a free throw contest late. St. John's defense made a couple of plays. Marquette hasn't really won a big game in a while. Like they lost to UConn, Villanova. They lose to Creighton last time too. They lose at Creighton. Yeah. So, they're looking for a key win here heading into the Big East tournament. Coming off the UConn loss the other night. St. John's doesn't really have a ton to play for here, which I think is the biggest thing about this game. Similar to the Auburn A&M angle the other night. I think that St. John's, they've already locked up the Big East regular season title. They have the 1 seed in the Big East tournament. If they have guys that have nagging injuries, this could be a situation where they sit some guys, get them ready for next week when the Big East tournament starts up. They're not going to want to risk anything here. Whereas I think Marquette, it's their senior day. They're going to be ready to go, I think, looking to pick up a key win just to get right heading into tournament season here. They haven't, as I said, they haven't won a big game in a while. So I think they're going to be hunting for this one, whether St. John's is shorthanded or not. So I'm going to be on Marquette here. I think -1.5 is a good number to get. I think they pick up a big win.
Yeah, I agree. The spot screams Marquette here, and they can turn over St. John's too. St. John's has been a little suspect with the ball against pressure defenses. We've talked about it a little bit. Marquette turned them over a little bit in the last matchup. And there's just a lot of teams in this league that don't really turn anybody over. Like there's a lot of drop coverage defenses in this league, like Creighton, Providence, DePaul. Like they just don't really try to pressure the ball at all. And Marquette's one of the only teams in the league that does. And I think that can give them some problems. I just worry about the glass a little bit again, but the spot is definitely pretty significant towards Marquette.
Yeah. I know you want to throw an America East play in there because what fun would that be without it? Unfortunately, I think it's not going to please Maine fans here.
No.
UMass Lowell got swept by Maine this year, but this most recent one actually was this week on Tuesday night, and Maine pulled out a 1-point win. Now UMass Lowell is headed right back there Saturday night. Maine's first home playoff game in 30 years.
That's
first
insane.
Playoff game in
I
30
actually
years.
didn't even know that.
Yeah, wow. I learned that tonight. So 6 p.m. tip in the pit. Should be a good atmosphere, but you're on the side of UMass Lowell.
Yeah. Well, the real question is, are you going to be at the game?
Probably not.
Man, if I was back in Maine, I would definitely consider it in the pit, especially hopefully that thing's packed out. It's not a bad environment when there's a lot of people in there, and definitely beats the other arena that they can't get any people in.
I think it has more. I've been up there 5 out of the last 7 days. I don't need to go again.
Yeah. But I like UMass Lowell here. It's just, I mean, they lost 2 heartbreakers against Maine. They were they were up by 6, I think, in the last minute at UMass Lowell. And then, I mean, it was a back and forth battle in this recent meeting in Orono on, was that Tuesday, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But, and they're going to be right back there on Saturday. And I just think UMass Lowell has a lot of advantages on the interior. They I believe they're like 21 of 35 inside the arc against Maine in this most recent matchup. And Maine's super thin up front, and guys like Max Brooks and, Quentin Mincy can have real advantages up front. And I mean, Maine's pick and roll offense isn't great, and UMass Lowell they'll play their drop coverage, run 3-point shooters off the line. So I don't think it's like going to be a great day for Mantis or Lopez. So, and it's like a double revenge spot. I don't really buy into that stuff that much, but I do think UMass Lowell has advantages up front. They've seen this Maine pressure twice. I think they'll be able to handle it a little bit better this third time around. And the way I'm playing it, I'm not actually playing UMass Lowell just to win this game. I'm actually going to play them to win the Americas tournament at plus 1,200. There were better numbers out there at first. This thing opened at like plus 2,200, and it got hit down pretty hard because UMass Lowell was expected to win this league at the beginning of the year, or expected to be like top 2 in this league. They're coming into this 6th. They're the 6th seeded team. And Maine's been a real surprise this year. They've regressed lately, but yeah, I do expect UMass Lowell, who is like one of the best offenses in this league, they're probably like 1A, 1B with Bryant, maybe even better than Bryant with their front court duo. And Max Brooks is great, and they do have really good guards in this team that can make shots. So that's the way I'd rather play it, is them to win the Americas tournament at plus 1,200, because I think they have matchup advantages, and they have in the second part of the draw, they would get either Binghamton or Albany, and that's definitely the better draw, as opposed to, actually, no, they would get Vermont in the second round, right? Because they're the 2 seed.
They reseed.
Oh, they reseed. That's right. So they would end up. Yeah, but either way,
depending on what, I guess if the 6 won, the 6 is going to Bryant unless Bryant happened to lose.
Right. Yeah. It would kind of depend on, maybe UNH beats Vermont, probably not. But yeah, either way, I do think there's some value on UMass Lowell, just because I think they're the most talented offense in this league, like outside of Bryant. So yeah, I like their value at 1,200.
Yeah. Unfortunately for Maine fans, but who knows? Maybe.
But I mean, I will be cheering for Maine. Just side note, I did bet UMass Lowell to win this, but I don't care about the ticket. I want to see the Black Bears in March just for once. I just want to see them play one game in March. I don't care how that game goes. It'd be pretty cool to watch.
Yeah. Got a couple other leans for Saturday before we wrap it up. Texas Tech -7 at Arizona State, and Kansas -3 at home against Arizona.
Yeah, not much to say on the Arizona State. Well, on the Texas Tech -7, just outside of Arizona State just being completely banged up. Like, Jaden Quaintance is still out. He's probably going to be out again for this game. Adam Miller tried to play last game at Arizona, came out after the first minute of the game. So I would assume he's not going to go, deal with a hip pointer. And then, like we've talked about, BJ Freeman was dismissed from the program. So this team's pretty depleted right now, and their perimeter defense is pretty weak right now. And if you have a weak perimeter defense against Texas Tech, it's not going to be pretty. And Texas Tech should be giving their full attention in this game Arizona State went to Lubbock and took them to double overtime. So I don't think this is a game that they're going to overlook. So I expect them to come out hungry in this game and, potentially blow them out on the road. Hopefully just win by a decent margin here.
Yeah. I mean, Arizona State's just, I think, like I said in the last episode, ready to go home. So
yeah, they packed it in.
So, and then Kansas -3 against Arizona. Kansas probably going to finish their lowest in the Big 12, maybe in the Bill Self era. I don't remember a time where they finished this low.
No, I don't think they ever have. And I mean, they've never been outside of a top 4 seed in the NCAA tournament. And they're probably looking at a 6-7 seed right now in that area, but pretty good motivational spot here, coming off 2 losses and against an Arizona team that I don't really trust on the road. and an Arizona offense that I don't really trust when they're forced to win over the top with their shooters. I don't trust the trio of Love, Bradley, and Lewis to make shots at a high clip, and
What about
Kansas will
Delhi?
force you to
Come
do
on,
that. Huh?
Delhi,
Oh
Delhi.
yeah, 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 he hasn't really been getting like a ton of time recently. They've
Yeah.
kind of been trusting the that backcourt that they've been running out there for a lot of the season. And KJ Lewis, his shot is just it's not there. I mean, he's dealing with that thumb injury, and every time he takes a shot, he starts shaking his hand and like
They don't really guard him.
no, you don't have to. Like you
No,
can play under
he
pretty
shakes.
much
He shakes his hand except when he makes it. Then
right.
you don't shake it then.
Yeah, he'll miss a free throw and he'll start shaking his hand and he'll make the next one. He's all good. But you can basically play under every one of these guards on ball screens, except when after Caleb Love makes a couple, then you probably have to start going over the top. But yeah, for this team to have to win over the top is not really a good proposition. And Kansas, whatever you want to say about them, they are a good defense and they are a really good interior defense. They're like a top 10 defense per Ken Palm and Torvik, wherever you look. And I do think they have advantages at the rim. And yeah, they're going to come out super motivated in this game. Going to be able to play in transition against an Arizona team that's willing to let you play there. And I definitely trust Kansas right now. I trust them more when playing in transition as opposed to playing in the half court where you can, kind of force them to shoot over the top. So yeah, I'll take Kansas. If it's -3, probably wouldn't lay it at a super high number just because I don't really trust their offense for the rest of the season. But yeah, that's the way I would lean.
Yeah. Then the last one. This one's on Sunday. Iowa +6.5. Blew a big lead tonight, or a decent sized lead against Michigan State. Traveling to Nebraska. Nebraska is really reeling here. Their tournament hopes are looking pretty grim at this point. I would say, that they probably haven't packed it in, but they're hurting right now.
Yeah, and this could potentially be like a play-in game to get into the Big Ten tournament. Like Nebraska's played their way so far down that like if they lose this game, they go to 7-13, I believe. And I think Iowa can potentially play their way in. I don't know if this loss tonight got them out, but so that could be an angle in this game if Iowa isn't in, and maybe they've given up. But I just think the matchup is significantly in Iowa's favor. But obviously, we've talked about it. We've bet a bunch of props against Nebraska's rim denial defense. They'll force teams to make a ton of threes, and Iowa's elite when playing in spot up and playing in secondary actions in general. And that's going to set up for a lot of scrambling for Nebraska's defense. They're going to get forced into rotation, and Iowa just has so many different options. They have the Sanfords, Brock Harding, Josh Dix. Like they can all make shots at a super high clip. And Nebraska's offense doesn't really scare me all that much in this game. Like obviously the concern is Iowa's defense, their inability to rebound. They can't really defend inside the arc, but Nebraska's not all that scary in that area. They don't get all over the glass, and they really only have Bryce Williams. And outside of that, they don't really have anyone that can, dominate a game. So I'll gladly take the 6.5 in my pocket, and Iowa can easily win this game if they're making enough shots. They make 35 to 40% of their threes, and they can potentially run away with this.
Yeah. Let's not disrespect Sam Hoiberg, though. I mean, he's worked hard to get the minutes that he gets.
On the offensive end, I'll disrespect him to my grave.
Yeah.
But he's a great defender. I'm not going to knock him in that area. He can't do anything on the offensive end, and he's basically playing point guard for this team. I wonder why.
Yeah. So, anyway, that's enough. We've dove into enough games, I think, for the weekend. There'll be more official plays to come. So, like I said, get into the Discord, follow the Action account. We'll post them on Twitter as well. Just keep up with them. We'll have player props as well. But enjoy all these games. Hopefully the bets cash, and we'll talk to you next time.